Hello, beautiful people of the internet. How are you doing today? My name is Jackie and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today's video is going to be another writing vlog, and in this vlog, I'm going to continue editing my historical mystery manuscript nicknamed Project Dagger. In case you're new here, Project Dagger is a historical murder mystery set in 1930 and inspired by Agatha Christie and her contemporaries. It has been through 2 rounds of beta readers, and currently I'm trying to figure out what else I need to do to polish this manuscript before querying. I am starting this vlog literally just a day or 2 after my last writing vlog. I was thinking that was gonna be the last vlog I was gonna make on this project, but no, I still have more stuff to do, and that vlog was so long, we needed to start another one. Currently, I'm in the process of rereading my manuscript myself and really just thinking about a lot of different things. I had 11 beta readers across 2 rounds read this manuscript, and I am very thankful for them and what they all contributed. 11 beta readers is a lot, and sometimes they gave me conflicting advice. So I'm really just trying to think what advice is sticking with me and what am I not going to go with? Because if you're getting feedback from 11 different people with 11 distinct opinions, and sometimes contradicting opinions on the same character, the same scene, etc., that means you can't listen to everybody, right? And so I am just thinking about stuff to decide what I think the right thing to do is, because it's physically impossible for me to listen to everyone who beta read my book. Some of them had different takes on things, which I appreciate because I wanted them to be honest. But that just means, I have to make the decision. And that's currently what I'm in the process of doing. Yesterday, I reread the first 3 chapters of my book. I did rework some things in the beginning based on feedback that I received from my second round of beta readers. And I think I'm going to send these chapters off to someone who hasn't read any of my book yet. There is someone who had offered to help me out if I needed it. And so I think now I do need it since I was editing these chapters, and I want to get an outside perspective to see if my edits were successfully accomplishing what I wanted them to accomplish. I'm also going to do my manuscript reread, edit some scenes where I identified areas for improvement, and also think about some of the other feedback that I received. One thing I probably should have mentioned in my last vlog, but I didn't get around to it, is what I think is a good way to assess feedback. I think when you're getting feedback from a lot of different sources, you do need to take some time away from the feedback, because if you're just immediately acquiescing to every person's suggestion and trying to do what every single person says, then I think the book can get kind of muddled. And not every suggestion is going to be the right thing for your specific vision. So I don't think you should immediately be like, oh, I gotta listen to every single person and do what they say. Don't do that. But also at the same time, you can't be defensive with feedback. I think sometimes when you get feedback, your first initial instinct is like, oh, no, that's no, I don't want to do that, or no, I'm right and you're wrong. And I don't think that's helpful either. I think if you get a piece of feedback and you're not sure about it, the proper way to respond is to be like, okay, I'm not sure about this suggestion. Let me think about it and revisit this later. Because when you have that time to be less emotionally attached and really think about how this feedback may or may not improve your story, then you can do the more objective thing. I don't know if that's the right way to describe it, because obviously everything in terms of literature and art is subjective, but you're making sure that you're reacting logically and not emotionally, because obviously it is hard to receive criticism. I know that's something a lot of people struggle with. I struggle with it sometimes too, but you need to just process it and think about if you think it's the right thing to do. Over the course of these 2 rounds of beta readers, I've received some constructive feedback where the second that I read the feedback, I was like, oh, you know, you're really onto something here, and I think you're right. This perspective is something that I haven't considered before, but I really agree with it. I've also gotten feedback where I was like, I'm not really sure about this. Let me think about it. And so that's kind of what I'm just navigating right now, processing things. And the things that I'm not sure about, you know, I'm just going to ruminate on it a little more. And ultimately, if I decide not to go with that feedback, that's okay. And the other thing is, even if you decide not to go with somebody's feedback, that doesn't mean that there wasn't value in the feedback, because it's always valuable to consider perspectives, even if ultimately that's not the perspective that you agree with. It's still good to think about it and consider it, because that helps you further solidify what you think and what you want. So that's kind of the big picture of what this vlog is going to be about. I need to reread this story because it has been weeks since I reread it, and I think, you know, it's always good to reread a manuscript once you've had a little bit of time away from it. I know some people recommend months away from a project, but I personally don't realistically think I can do that, okay? I think about what I'm writing night and day. It keeps me up at night, and I can't just take 6 months away from a project. Like, that's just not realistic for me personally, but a few weeks I definitely can do, and I think that's helpful. Hello, so I sent off my edited first 3 chapters to someone who hasn't read my book and also writes in my genre, so I'm looking forward to getting their opinion on it in the next couple of weeks. I did tell them some of the things that I was hoping to achieve with the edit, but also told them, like, you can just read this after you read the chapters so that you're going in unbiased. I think some of the things with the opening chapters that I was trying to fix is, one, making sure that it's piquing people's interest, because when you're submitting to literary agents, there is a lot riding on the opening pages. They want to be pulled in because they get so many submissions. So if they're not immediately interested in it, like, it's out. I was a little nervous about that because out of my 11 beta readers, like, most of them told me that they were interested by the beginning and they were intrigued. But one person said while they liked it, they thought that it might not be the best for literary agents. And then one person flat out was like, I didn't think the beginning was that interesting. So even though that's only 2 out of 11, that really freaked me out, because obviously the opening pages are so important. And I think the opening pages are a really hard thing for me to personally gauge whether or not they're interesting, because I'm trying to, you know, lay some seeds. But as somebody who knows the entire story, I can't read them with the perspective of someone who doesn't know what's coming. So it's hard for me to guess, like, okay, if somebody is going into this blind, is this gonna intrigue them and make them be like, ooh, well, what's going on with this? I want to know more, because I already know everything. So I'm not gonna read it and think, I want to know more. I already know. And the other thing is, like I've mentioned in some of my videos before, the heroine of Project Dagger is meant to be a very introverted, anxious person like myself. And the thing about that is, some people don't really vibe with that in the beginning. And I am intentionally having her go on a character journey where she learns to be more confident in herself through this investigation. But some people were just not really vibing with it. They felt like she was too introverted to an extent where, like, their interest wasn't piqued. And so One of my beta readers had some really helpful suggestions about this. Well, actually, multiple beta readers had really good suggestions about this. I implemented some edits based on what someone in round 1 said that I think really helped the manuscript. But then in round 2, there were still some people who were not totally on board with her in the beginning because of her anxiety and nervousness. And so somebody in round 2 also made some suggestions, basically saying, like, listen, I think she's a likable character, but here are my ideas for how you could make her more interesting to readers to get them invested in her story. And I thought those were good suggestions also, so I've tried to implement some of those. I think, you know, it is a little bit difficult because so many heroines in books are very outgoing, outspoken, witty, clever. And I like those types of characters. But I wanted to do something different because I am not that type of person, and I wanted some more representation for us socially awkward girlies, right? But I think it's easier for a reader to get invested in someone who is very outspoken, brazen, intelligent, witty, because we as a society admire those qualities. Whereas I think maybe some people like have a harder time getting invested in a character who is introverted. And I think readers like characters who have qualities that they look up to. So if you're a reader and you're someone who is introverted yourself, it might be easier for you to get invested in somebody who is much more outgoing because maybe on some level you wish that you are outgoing. Or, you know, have you ever read a book and there's a character who has like the most clever quips and can just fire them off and you're like, man, I wish that I could be like that. I think it's easier to get invested in a character like that. It was something that I really wanted to do, and hopefully it'll work out because it was something that I did intentionally and that was important to me. So those are some of the things that I was trying to address in the opening chapters, and I'm hoping getting an unbiased perspective will help me assess if I've been successful with those edits. And also, this person is somebody who does have experience in this genre, so I think it would just be good to get their opinion. But I'm going to continue rereading this book myself. I'm taking turns just reading it and also listening to it with the read aloud feature because, like I've said, since I've read this so many times, it is not as engaging to me because this is what, my 6th read. So just trying to get through it, you know. Obviously, when you've reread something so many times in 1 year, it does get a little bit dull for you. So that's part of the reason why I think I need to query soon, because I'm rapidly approaching that I'm sick looking at this manuscript point. Okay, I lie. There was something that I meant to say in the last vlog and I forgot. And here I almost forgot it again. But some things about the beta reader feedback that have made me happy and feel promising to me. One, nobody DNF'd the manuscript. The last time I had beta readers, I did have people drop out during the process, and I suspect some of them it was due to time or scheduling things, but nobody ever told me that they were dropping out and why. So obviously I can only assume. And, you know, if genuinely they weren't enjoying the story, that would have been helpful for me to know, but nobody told me, so I can only theorize about why they didn't finish reading. But the fact that everybody who started the manuscript read the whole thing does feel promising to me, because that means that, you know, clearly they were motivated enough to keep reading. I did tell people at the outset that they could DNF if they wanted to. I just would appreciate if they communicated with me. So the fact that nobody did that tells me that, you know, they were all at least engaged enough to keep going. I'm also really happy that only one person out of 11 guessed the murderer correctly. Only one person locked that in as their final guess. I asked everyone on every survey to say who they thought was the murderer and why. And people did notice clues, yet only one person actually locked in the correct person. So that to me also feels good. A lot of people said they were really pleasantly surprised. You know, they weren't expecting it, but they were happy with it. And I think the fact that they did notice some of the clues tell me, okay, they didn't predict it, but it also wasn't out of nowhere, right? Because I think it's a really delicate balance. You want people to be surprised by the resolution, but there needs to be evidence. In my opinion, the most satisfying feeling when reading a mystery is when you get to the reveal and it's not who you thought. But then as you're reading the reveal, you're like, oh my God, I should have seen this coming. That was a clue. And I noticed it and I didn't think anything of it. That to me is the best feeling. So I feel like that's another good sign that people were picking up on things, but they still didn't guess correctly. Got my Agatha Christie puzzle finished and it is ready to go on my wall. Not sure where exactly I'm gonna put it, but now I have an Agatha Christie puzzle just like I have a Jane Austen puzzle, so I can have my two favorite authors on my wall. I think it looks good. Hello, so in my reread, I am now on chapter 17 in the book, and I also got the feedback from the person I shared my revised first 3 chapters with. And overall, she said that she thought it was very polished in terms of the writing, which is good to hear. The one thing she said that really freaked me out at first was that she felt like when the murder actually happens runs the risk of being too slow for some agents. And that honestly totally like made me not literally have a panic attack, but it freaked me out this morning. And I was like, maybe I've spent, over a year writing this manuscript and literary agents aren't even gonna give it a chance because nobody's dead on page 1. Like that was what I was thinking this morning. And now I'm calmer. So let's unpack that a little bit. The person who gets murdered dies just short of the 25% mark in my book. And when I had Googled that earlier, people online seemed to think that was okay. The thing is also, though, I have heard some literary agents say, well, if you send me a mystery, somebody better be dead on page 1. I've also heard other literary agents say, no, that's not the case. You just need to intrigue me in some way. So definitely a lot of opinions about this, and I guess I just have to accept the fact that some literary agents, that's going to be their preference, and if they click on my sample pages and they see that there's not a dead body on page 1, they might not want to read the manuscript. That's their preference. Personally, I hate when I pick up a murder mystery and the murder happens on page 1. 9 times out of 10, I hate that because to me, this is going to sound harsh, but if this person is dead on page 1, why should I care? I don't know them. They mean nothing to me. Like, to me, when somebody is murdered on page 1, there's no emotional investment because I don't know this person. I don't know any of the characters in this book. So why do I care that so-and-so is dead? Why do I care that so-and-so is being looked at as a suspect? I don't, because I don't know that character, right? I think in a book, you need to get to know the characters in a way that you can never know another human person. And so for me, if the murder happens on page 1, there aren't any stakes, in my opinion, because I'm not emotionally attached to that person. Like, yeah, it sucks that they're dead, but I don't know them. Does this make any sense at all, or do I just sound crazy? I don't know. It might be an interesting experiment to pick up recently released mysteries by debut authors and see, like, at what point in the book does somebody get murdered. That could be an interesting experiment to do just to see where it is. I mean, I did research and people said that 25% was like the upper limit. So like I am, right there, but I thought it would be okay. And it's certainly nothing that my beta readers complained about. But then again, I also recognize that literary agents have much higher standards than your average reader because they're only gonna represent something if this book is so good to them it's like life-changing, you know what I mean? And they're confident that they can sell this and they can make a ton of money off of it. So I don't know, I'm really not sure about it. I do think that I could potentially shuffle a few scenes around so that the murder does take place a little bit earlier, but there is absolutely no way that I could rewrite this manuscript to have the murder take place on page 1. It just would not work because my heroine is coming to a place she hasn't been before, meeting people she has never met before. And so there needs to be a certain degree of setup just based on the basic premise. So I don't know. I'm not really sure what to do. Maybe I should just keep it the way it is. And if I'm like not really getting any querying bites, then maybe I can try to revise it so the murder happens earlier. I'm really not sure what to do about this. I do think I could get it slightly earlier, but the murder doesn't happen on page 1. It doesn't happen in the first 10%. And I personally am not interested in revising it to make that happen. So that's kind of the decision that I've come to, but I'm still not sure I feel good about it. I think I have so much anxiety, worried that I'm not going to make the right decision while querying this time. But that's the thing. There's not like a right decision. Like if you do all of these things, you will get agented in a book deal. You can never absolutely know that. And really, if you're wondering, how do you know that your book is ready for querying? The answer is that it's a trick question and you can never 100% know. There's not like a certain bar you need to reach and it's gonna work out for you. Like there's absolutely no concrete moment when you can know that it's ready. You just gotta at one point jump off the cliff with a hope and a dream. So that's that. Hopefully there are some literary agents out there who don't mind if the murder takes place in the first 25% of the book and share my opinions that a little bit of buildup is good. But let me know your thoughts on that. When you read mysteries, write mysteries, is there a certain point when you're like, okay, I'm ready for there to be a dead body? I also personally think that in a mystery, you can maybe get away with delaying the actual murder a little longer, whereas I feel like in a thriller, you need to get to the action very quickly because of reader expectations. But I don't know. Anybody out there got an opinion on this? You let me know. I'm really not sure about it, so I'd like to hear some other people chime in. Hello. So still chugging along with my reread of my manuscript. I believe every scene that I had on my checklist, I've edited at this point. So I'm really just seeing what else occurs to me as I do this reread. I'm also still very conflicted on if I should make the murder be earlier in the book, because I do think there is a way I could move it up a little bit, but I also think then the logistics, let's say, may not totally make sense. It would be a more significant change, and I'm just not sure if that's something that I want to do. Oh my God, did you hear the cat just scream at me? She screamed at me in my last vlog too. She is so bossy. Okay, so what was I saying before we were so rudely interrupted? Yeah, I'm just still ruminating on that a little bit, and I do feel like I have more uncertainty with this manuscript. I do think deep down when I started querying my last manuscript, I thought deep down that it was going to work out. And this time I think there's a lot more self-doubt. I'm wondering, if I should keep editing it for longer or if it's time. I have been working on this on and off for a year at this point, and I've gone through multiple drafts. So I do feel like at some point I need to just bite the bullet, but I'm also wondering, is it really ready? And the thing is, you can never know 100% that it's really ready. I enjoy the manuscript. I think it's good. My beta readers liked it overall. Obviously they had suggestions, but they all felt pretty positively about it. And I had beta readers who loved the manuscript, like absolutely loved it. One person said, I think this would make a great like movie or a TV adaptation, you know? So clearly there are people out there who loved it. And the thing about querying literary agents is you need one person to love it. So do I feel confident enough that I feel like it could reach that one person who is gonna love it enough to take me on as a client? I don't know. And the thing is, you can write a perfectly good manuscript and you're not gonna get literary representation. There are just so many factors that go into this process. So I'm very uncertain. I don't know when I'm going to start querying this. I was thinking like early October. I'm not sure if I'm still gonna do that. We'll just see how things go. But then again, like I said, last time I was super confident and I failed. So maybe this time, if I'm not confident, I'll succeed. I don't know. I really don't know. Another thing that I wanted to mention in my previous vlog where I was talking about researching literary agents on Publishers Marketplace is how my strategy is going to be slightly different this time. This time, I'm definitely going to make sure that I am querying some new agents who don't necessarily have an established sales history, but who are at good agencies, because I do think new literary agents are more willing to take chances on people, which is a plus. And potentially, you know, you could be one of somebody's first clients and you guys could have a lifelong business relationship. So I am going to query some people who maybe haven't sold a lot of books, maybe haven't sold any books, but they are at agencies that do have reputable sales. Another thing that I think I want to do is, if I can, query multiple agents at the same agency. You need to look on the agency's submission page, but most agencies say that if, you know, agent A passes, you can then query again to agent B. There are a few agencies that have a, as they call it, a no from one is a no from all policy, which basically means if I query agent A and agent A says no, that is also a no from agent B, C, D, E. And generally you see that at agencies where the agents work very closely together. So I think last time I really only picked out one agent per agency in most cases. And this time, if I feel like there are multiple agents who might be a good fit, I'm gonna then, you know, query the second agent. And I'm also gonna try to be a little strategic about it, because there were, for instance, some instances where I had 2 agents at an agency on my shortlist, but I queried agent A in a later round. And so by the time I got the rejection from them, I was kind of about ready to give up on querying, and I never got around to querying agent B, if that makes sense. And I think one thing to keep in mind when you're querying literary agents is the worst thing they can do is say no or say nothing. So if you're like, this agent looks like a really cool person to work with, but their request rate isn't that high, or I'm not entirely sure they're gonna love my project, you have nothing to lose. Just send them the query. If they say no, they say no, but you lose nothing by trying. So those are some of my thoughts as I consider my options before entering the query trenches a second time. Again, I'm not sure when exactly I'm gonna start querying. I honestly thought that I would have started querying by now, and obviously that didn't happen. So I'm just gonna think through things and start when it feels right to me. Sorry that the lighting is so terrible in here right now, but there is a little something that I want to say to anyone out there who is currently querying literary agents or wants to get a literary agent. No agent is better than a bad agent. I have been looking at a lot of posts on Twitter, refuse to call it X, from people who got agents, and I see these tweets from people who are very excitedly sharing that they are now agented, and they tag the person who is their agent. And when I actually look at that agent's profile, their website, do any research into them at all, I see that this agent is not at all qualified to sell a book. Do not sign with someone who has no agency or editorial background and no sales history. Anybody can call themselves a literary agent, but there are some who are not people you should trust with your work and your career. And what prompted me to say this is I was just looking for how I got my literary agents videos on YouTube, and I saw someone who recently posted a video talking about signing with a literary agent, and it's one of those not qualified agents that I saw somebody else on Twitter sign with. So I don't want to say anything to these people and, shit on their joy, but I am nervous for them because this person that they're signing with has never worked in publishing, never interned at a literary agency. They just created their own agency. And if you look them up on Publishers Marketplace, they have 0 sales. So I feel like these people who are so happy right now are potentially falling prey to a schmagent, as they call it. And, I'm not going to say anything to them because it's really not my place, but I just want to caution you, please do not query, let alone sign with someone like this, because more likely than not, this person does not have any connections to sell your book, and you are now signing a legally binding agreement with someone who has no experience. So just remember that there are some literary agents who are not worth signing with, and you would be better off having no agent at all than signing with one of these people. All right? Remember your own worth, and don't be so eager to sign with an agent that you're going to sign with someone who is actively unqualified or even predatory. Okay? Also, if a literary agent asks you for money up front, red flag, don't walk, run. Okay? This has just been my PSA, because I see so many people on Twitter posting about, I signed with an agent, and the agent they signed with is not somebody who I would query in a million years. So please know your own worth and do your research. This has been a public service announcement. Thank you. Hello, everybody. So draft number 6 is done as of today, and the current word count is 89,398. I actually added 2,151 words to this draft, but I also removed a little over 1,800 words just by doing line edits or deleting a sentence here or there. So even though I added 2,000 new words, the word count really did not go up that much at all, and currently we're still in the 89,000 range for this manuscript. So I think this is pretty much it for this vlog. I might film another vlog before I start querying, because I'm not entirely sure if there are any other changes that I want to make. As of now, I'm pretty happy with the manuscript and how it reads, but I might want to trim a few more things. I asked my mom if she would reread the epilogue for me, because I personally really like my epilogue. I personally think I'm really good at writing endings, because I feel like I'm good at sort of, doing callbacks to certain things and just wrapping things up in a satisfying way. So I really like my epilogue, but I do think it is slightly too long. In beta round 1, someone told me that they felt like the epilogue went on for too long. So I deleted a little bit from it, hoping that would make it better. But in round 2, I did get a comment from somebody saying, I really liked the epilogue, but I think it went on slightly long. So I think that means I need to still cut a little bit more from it, but seeing as I personally really like it, when I reread it, I can't think of anything to delete. So I want somebody else to read it for me and say, you know, if they think there's anything that can go just to make it a little bit shorter. So I might do another very quick vlog before I start the querying process because there are other things that I might want to do, but we're getting really, really close. And I think in a few weeks, I'm probably just going to shoot my shot with a small batch size just to see what kind of response I get. Am I getting full requests? Is there a positive response? And if, you know, I'm not getting positive responses, then I'll know that it needs a little more polishing. So I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you want to see my next writing vlog as soon as it comes out and any updates on Project Dagger or my other writing projects in the future, do subscribe to this channel. I post new videos every Wednesday and Sunday. If you liked this video, please do give it a big thumbs up. It really does help me and my channel. And you can find my social media links in the description if you want to follow me on Tumblr, Instagram, or be my friend on Goodreads. That is about it for today's video. Thank you so much, and I hope you have a sensational rest of your day. Bye, and I'll see you next time.